Awesome.
Rolling.
Nice, nice. Okay then, so welcome again. So as I said before, today we're going to talk about forgiveness. What?
Well, this is the first time I'm sitting here. I see you both here and there.
You're all the regular.
I'm everywhere, right?
So I'm looking actually there.
Inception? I don't know.
Yeah, Inception. Oh. Awesome. So, today we're going to talk about forgiveness. This is a relatively simple topic, but extremely powerful. I mean, like, it's the power that it has, it's like life transforming. If you really understand the concept, if you really want to apply it, because understanding it, easy. Applying it, hard. Okay, because it's hard because we don't want to let go of the anger or of the score that we have with other people. Mm-hmm. So in a way, we all know that phrase, right? I will forget, but I will not forgive. Mm-hmm. Do you know this phrase?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this basically implies that you will forget from memory what somebody did to you, but if you do not forgive, that energy or that energetic imprint that you created with the other person, or karma, because in a way it's a form of karma that is created, then that will last forever, because that doesn't go away. Okay, you need to remember that energy doesn't go away. Even if you forget it, your body, your other parts of yourself will remember it. So this was just like the beginning of what we are used to. So we have that phrase, I will forget but I will not forgive, and if you're wise enough, you will forgive and you will not forget. Because once you forgive, then you transform the pain of that event or something, you transform it into wisdom. Because what happens is, you went over it emotionally, right? But you understood and you remember the lesson behind it. Because everything usually has a lesson behind it, right? Okay, but this goes very deep, and I'm going to try to explain more or less the concept where forgiveness comes into play through an experience that I had while I was in a different state of consciousness, to say so. Some of you here, you already know the experience, some of you don't, but I'm going to repeat it anyway because it's important to the context. And through this experience, I was able to really understand the power of forgiveness. Because, we say like, oh, you need to forgive everybody, and they're like, bullshit, like flower power stuff. I thought the same, to be honest. Like, I was like, forgive, okay, whatever. After I had this experience, I was like, okay, this is the most important part if you want to grow. Especially like, if you remember this one, if you want to grow in consciousness or in energy, you need to forgive. Because otherwise you will be stuck in these lower dimensions. Or lower dimensions like fear, guilt, and so on and so forth. So, let me explain or tell you the little story that I've been through. So, when I was in a different state of consciousness, basically I started meditating and I got a lot of downloads. So downloads is like when you get information, you just get information and you're like, oh, I get it, I understand. It's like you have realizations. And the more you will go into this spiritual practice or into meditation or stuff like that, the more this type of information you can download. But you need to be in a space where you're relaxed and when you slow down. Make sense? Because for me, I always get these downloads when I'm in a period where I have nothing to do. I don't know, 2 weeks, then I'm like, I have nothing to do. So, and in these 2 weeks of like relaxation, then I get all the downloads. Okay, so moving forward. In this particular state, I got a download, and I started to understand how the universe was built, or how the universe works. And I'm going to try to explain it in very simple words, because in a way it's simple, but it's complex. So it's not complicated, it's simple and complex, which means that there are single, let's say, equations, but repeated 1 billion times or more. Make sense? This is the difference between complex and complicated. Now, the experience was something like this. I started to see space folding on itself and it's transformed into geometry. And what?
Into what? Sorry.
Geometry.
Geometry.
Yeah, geometry, like triangles, squares, and all of this. And I don't know if you know about, there is something called sacred geometry, and there are actually a few shapes, and all of these shapes, they literally create this reality. Exactly like, for example, in computer generating, they use triangles, and they're like many triangles, and they create 3D reality in the games. So in the same way, they use triangles to create the game in 3D. The same, these shapes are created are used to create what we see as reality. So to move forward, there were these shapes, and there was basically I understood and I felt that it was like a machine. It was very precise. It was almost mathematic. Like imagine perfect geometry. They was working with each other. It was folding. It was growing. It was shrinking. And it was like a perfect machine. It was like mathematics, like pure mathematics. And I really understood and I kind of felt how this machine worked. But at one point, I was like, this is weird. Like it feels cold. Like it feels cold like a real machine. And then the word love appeared in my reality. And then suddenly, everything, imagine from just like black and white, everything just like bursted, exploded into the rainbow, into all the colors. And basically what was happening is like the love was the fuel for this machine, for this mathematic machine. So basically the universe is comprised of mathematics and love. So mathematics is the things that like is the equations behind the program, and the fuel or the energy behind it is love. So once I understood this, I understood that love was everywhere, like everywhere in the universe, and that was the prime substance that permeated everything. And then I could see this almost this like rainbow love, like going through all my being, and I could feel everything from it. And then I was thinking like, okay, but what is the opposite of this, right? That's like we live in a world of opposite. And then I started feeling this resentment that I had, or anger, like at that moment was anger. And how I felt it was like a ball of darkness. And literally, imagine like the whole body has like veins or channels which energy moves through, right? I don't know if you remember from the first class, we had the big channel, which was the Shushumna, and we had other ones and many like meridians. So how I saw this black darkness was basically like something that was blocking the channel, and this rainbow energy, this love, couldn't pass through. So basically this resentment was blocking the natural flow of energy. And it was blocking it in my body because I had it in my body and nowhere else. Make sense? Now, then what I did, because I felt it was almost like a clogged vein. You know, like when the blood clogs and it's like doesn't move anymore and the blood doesn't move. So exactly like that. Then I was thinking like, okay, what should I do? Should I give it more love? Because this is what we tend to do, you know, like, oh, something happens, like give it more love. I tried that, nothing worked. Like it was still clogged. The pressure increased. So imagine like there was more love coming in, but it was still not passing. Okay, so I was like, okay, what do I do now? This is literally what I asked. And then the word forgiveness came into in my reality. The moment the forgiveness came into my reality, that clog literally exploded. Like literally just like disappeared. Imagine like it was white light and it literally exploded, and then love could pass through it. Right? And love could go and like normally flow how it should. And from there I basically understood that by you forgiving, you are basically releasing all of those clogs and all of those blocks that you have by forgiveness. Now, what are actually those clogs or these negative energies, to put it more simple? They're basically our judgments of the universe. So I'm gonna go a bit like maybe religious, but it's not actually religious. But I'm going to use the word God or source or whatever. So, because what is happening, in a way, I hope you get the bigger picture, is that God created everything in existence, and everything is perfect. And then what we did, we came, and since we have free will and we have our own consciousness, we judged this perfect creation and we put our judgment on it. And what did this happen? Because of this judgment, it literally created this block. So in a way, when you forgive, you are releasing this judgment, and then the perfection can naturally flow how it was intended to do so. So this was just like the baseline in a way to understand the energetics behind forgiveness. So basically, you're unclogging yourself in when it comes to your energy. Now, let's go to more interpersonal relationship, because I know this is the most important one. So basically, what happens when you don't forgive somebody? We usually tend to get mad at somebody, or resent, or have certain emotions related to somebody, right? Somebody pissed us off, somebody threw something, or somebody got us mad in some way. So when that happens, you are basically giving a part of your soul to that person. Because you need to understand that if you get mad at somebody energetically, that means that person is more powerful than you. Why? Because you got mad at him. If you were more powerful, you'd be like, I don't care, you know? And what you're doing energetically is you're giving your power away to that other person by hating him or by having some negative emotion, except for acceptance and love, because that's the baseline. So basically you're giving your power away, and then you become much weaker. And most of the time the person is not affected by this. If the only person that is affected, it's you, because you lose more and more power by hating more and more people. Now, how this looks like also energetically, because I really felt this, the before and after forgiveness, is energetically it looks like you are latched on to that person. Imagine physically, you're like, that person did something wrong to you, and you're like grabbing that person and always going with that person for that moment to wait, and like, okay, so you slap me and I'm gonna slap you. I'm just gonna wait for the moment. So this is what energetically how it feels like. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And why we do this is because we have this mentality in a way, if you did something wrong to me, I will do something wrong to you, right? So it's like eye for an eye. Mm-hmm. However, if you use this mentality, eye for an eye, then if you continue, everybody will get blind. Mm-hmm. And here, true? And here is where karma appears. Because karma is simply like the result of our actions. As simple as that. So if somebody does something bad to you, you do something bad to him, then like the circle repeats, and you're like bam 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 hitting each other, all of that. And that's like literally how karma is created, in a way. Because the karma is another big subject. And what happens, imagine you have this perpetual circle of suffering. Like somebody does something bad, you do something bad, then he comes back and does something bad, and it continues forever. When you forgive that person, you literally break the cycle. And you're free. So this is why forgiveness is so important when it comes also to other humans. If somebody did something wrong to you, then you have more power if you forgive that person, and that's the biggest win for you and for him. Okay? Winning and trying to fight him again. You may win from an ego perspective. You like to show you like who's the bigger gorilla, but you lose from the energetic perspective. So you win from the ego perspective, but you lose from the energetic perspective. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's why once you know this, then you need to choose, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to feed my ego, or do I want to feed my soul? By forgiving, because when you really forgive and you let go of that person, you have so much freedom and so much lightness, because you literally brought back that part of your soul that you gave him, and you literally freed yourself from holding onto that score. Because in a way, we're like playing subconsciously. It's almost we're like keeping score. You know, it's like, oh, so that person hit me like this much time, so I'm gonna keep scoring, like hitting back. When you literally let go of this, then it's like you have nothing on your mind, and also energetically it's the same. Like it's like complete freedom. Does it make sense so far? Okay, now, so this is when it comes to other persons. Okay, maybe I'll come back to it. So, how do we forgive another person? Because this was like, everybody was like curious of how you do this. Now, the first thing that you need to do before you forgive is you need to try to see the bigger picture of stuff. And you need to try to understand that usually what people do to harm other people is because hurt people, right? And most of the time you need to understand that they're doing it from an unconscious mentality. They're not conscious of their action. And they're doing it from a trauma that they don't want to see, right? And what is this trauma that they don't want to see? It's their shadow. Make sense? Yes. So firstly, you need to see the bigger picture. If somebody hurt you, try as best as you can to understand that he is not doing it willingly, he's doing it because he's unconscious, he or she. Make sense? Once you see the bigger picture, then it will be much easier to understand that, like, okay, so I was just like, it was not intentional in a way, it was unconscious. And then there are some specific techniques. One of them is basically imagine the person in front of you, and then what you do is you talk with that person, tell him everything, he or she, tell him everything that you have on your soul. I don't know, you did this, like let everything out, and then at the end, just like say, I forgive you and I free you. It's not free you, I forgive you and I release you. And you need to do this as many times as you need till you fully release that person, and you will feel it in the body. Like you will really feel it like releasing. And you need to do this stuff to every person, even if they like annoy you a little. Okay? Even if it's a little, it's still enough. Because you're still creating energetic cords to that person. Even if you're not aware of. Including parents. Okay? I know the hardest to forgive. Okay? Parents, siblings.
Siblings never ending story.
Yes. Teachers, ex-lovers. Another huge story. Okay? Ex-lovers, this is the most important also to forgive, because the more interaction we have to a person, that is where we create the most connections, you know, and when that person does something that we don't like, then it's like, oh, you did something wrong. And then hate is created. So basically, you need to understand that when you're forgiving somebody, you're releasing or letting go of this need to control or need to, almost like expectation that we have from other persons, right? Because like, why does this resentment and hate is created in the first place? Because we in a way think that the other person has some form of control over our lives. That if like that person doesn't do something, I will be sad. Yes, it may be true, but that is also your part that you need to see and you need to like go through. Make sense? Because again, remember that you're the creator of your reality, and if you're not the creator, then the opposite is you're the victim. Make sense? So you need to just be aware, and then I'm not judging anyone, just to be super clear, because it's not an easy journey to be aware of everything that is happening here, especially in your psychic. You have many aspects, you have many parts of yourself that are hidden, then that you don't want to see, and I understand that it's like most people don't want to see them because it's traumatic and they don't want to go there. But the more you go on this journey, the direction is that you become the creator of your reality fully. And what does this mean? It means that you will no longer be affected by anything that somebody else does. Why? Because you have the power, and they have only the power that you give them. Make sense? So this you can also like combine with forgiveness, because you need to understand the power struggle. Yeah, in a way, the power struggle is like, okay, how much power do I give to this person to make me happy? And then you need to realize, like, okay, if I give this much power to this other person, then he or she can use that power against me. Make sense? In a way, I had this realization a few months ago. I didn't know, actually, I don't even remember when I had it. It was something like, we are so angry and pissed at persons. For example, people who we, let's say, admire or think as higher than us. When they do something wrong, or when they do something that we don't like, then we get angry at them. But why we get angry at them is because we gave a bit of our power to them, and now we think that like, oh, they're like not doing it, but not doing what we want to do. But does it make sense? Because if we would consider them as equal, and there will be no power imbalance, then you're free to do whatever. You know, there are no ties. Does it make sense? Now, forgiving other persons, it's one thing. Another thing you can do is you can forgive other aspects of yourself and other aspects of others. Because once you understand, this is a bit of a higher teaching, but you will get there sooner or later. You need to understand that everything was created to be perfect. Okay, so God created this universe to be perfect in any shape. Then what happened is we came, and since we have also the power to create, we created, some of us choose to disconnect from the perfection, disconnect from God, just to have an experience. Nothing wrong with that. We chose to disconnect from God, and then to create from imperfection. Because if you create with God, you can only create perfection, nothing else. Does it make sense? Okay, once you have this realization that everything is perfect, then all the pain and all the suffering and all of these emotions that you see here are basically imperfections. So you can also use this technique to forgive yourself or other people for this imperfection, because you need to see the perfection in them and then realize that all of this was just like imperfection that they picked up. And then you're forgiving, you're releasing, in a way, the imperfections from the other person by you forgiving that you see the imperfection in them, in a way. I don't know if it makes sense or it is just more complicated. So, does it make sense or no?
I think it makes sense. So if I understand correctly, it's about forgiving ourselves that we see aspects in other people that we don't like.
Yes. Because in a way, you're forgiving yourself for judging, exactly. Because judgment is actually the imperfection. Make sense? So basically how I do it, and I did it with other people and it was amazing, is I forgive myself for seeing the imperfection in them.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes, because I'm like connecting with the perfection in them, because everybody has this perfection in them. It's basically the essence.
We choose to see their imperfections instead of seeing their perfections, and it's actually our case.
Yes.
I mean, our choice, kind of. Huh?
You can see both.
Yes, you can be aware of both. But once you forgive, it's a different process. Like I will try my best to explain it, because how I see it, how I do it energetically, it's basically the same way that I forgive my own judgment, that I unblocked it. I did it the same in the other person. If it makes sense. I forgive the resentment in the other person, and then it also released. In a way, it's like that. Okay, but yeah.
Would you say that judgment in general is something that shouldn't exist?
No.
Because I think judgment is something that we cannot let go of. Judgment is not, don't want to use words of bad or good because it's maybe confusing, but judgment is something that is existing and doesn't have to be bad, right? It's something we need judgment.
Like the thing is, in these dimensions we need judgment, because like otherwise we will not survive. If we will be like all power and it's like, oh, such a beautiful tiger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. This I'm telling, if the more you grow higher, okay, the more you grow higher, you in a way forgive this lower emotions. Because if you don't release them, you cannot go higher. Make sense? Yeah. So it really depends on what level you're playing. In some levels that you need it's necessary, but the more you go up, you need to let go of that toy if you want to go up. Okay. So there is no judgment in judgment. I hope doesn't make sense. Because, for example, when you get here to enlightenment, you get to a state where you don't need judgment anymore, because also your physical body is at such a level that you cannot be harmed. So it makes sense to even let go even further of other stuff that may cause you to play in the lower dimension. Does it make sense? So yeah, it's just like a game. The more you go up, the more you need to let go of other tools that you were using in the previous level.
But
It's as simple as
while
that.
you exist in the real world, here in the physical world, you can get rid of those things? Like, is it possible? Because you said that it's not possible to get rid of judgment, for example.
Depending on dimensions. Because the more you go up, you start to release it more and more, and at one point you don't need it anymore, and you can release it completely.
And still be here?
That's like, to be honest, that's relatively.
Okay.
Because I would say that's already the levels of masters. And when you're at the levels of masters, it's like you're here but you're not here, in a way. To be honest, it's hard to explain without going into the supernatural.
Okay.
So that's why I would say, like, let's leave it here. So yes, so not only forgiveness to forgive other people for what they did for you, it's super important to release those people and to release the chains that you have to those people, but you can also forgive other aspects of yourself and for others. And now let's talk, the most important thing is how to forgive yourself. So when it comes to forgiving yourself, one of the things that really helps is to have this mentality that at any point when you think you did a mistake, you are actually doing the best that you could in that moment, right? Because none of us, it's like, oh, in that moment I did something and I did it consciously bad. No, you did it. You were just maybe a little bit unconscious, and given the situation, you did the best you could. Yes, maybe, and after what we do, we overthink, and it's like, oh, in that situation I could have done this. But you couldn't, because you had that certain mood and that certain perspective, and that's what you did your action on. Can you change the past? No, but you can forgive it. You cannot change it physically, you can change it only energetically. Basically how you perceive that moment back in time. So you need to have this perspective that whatever you did wrong in the past, you're actually doing the best that you could at that moment. Okay, tell me, like, what other things it would be hard to forgive about yourself, if you have any.
What things it would be difficult to forgive?
About yourself, yes. If like something comes to mind. If nothing comes to mind, that's fine.
No, I'm trying to put it into words. You know, and you can feel
For
it.
example, my limitations. Like I would like to overcome something, but I see that in some situations I'm powerless. And for example, I'm angry at myself that I cannot overcome this barrier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I have a good question. Is it your limitation or other people's limitations that you adopted? It's a good question. It's a very good part. But the thing is that, yes, we have limitations. And most of these limitations are programmed within us because of society and all of this. And also because of other programs that we have. For example, if we talk about money or something like this, it's basically, you need to understand that beliefs create reality. And all of these beliefs, we learn them from our family. So when you have certain limitations, these limitations are learned. Because you in yourself, you're unlimited, like your true self. The things that you think are your limitations are actually something that you learn. So basically, the bigger picture you have of how things work, the easier it is to forgive yourself for these limitations. Because it's something that was programmed in you. You didn't have enough awareness, right, to know that, okay, this is actually a limitation and I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're aware of it. So in a way, now since you're aware of it, you're right, you understand that it was not something that you had control. So you need to let go of the guilt, because it's associated with a lot of guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand that this was, you adopted this and it's not your fault. But again, since you're aware of this, in a way it's your responsibility to change them,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to change them, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you have this bigger perspective, would it be easier to forgive them? Or not? What do you think?
Forgive them? You mean?
To forgive yourself for having these limitations.
Yes. In my opinion, yes, because I wasn't aware of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this also helps a lot to have a bigger picture of stuff. Because we tend to really guilt trip ourselves for not doing stuff or not being good enough or all of this. Because what? Other people told us that we're not good enough, right? And because what? Other people told them they're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? It's like the cycle continues till it gets to you. So in a way we need to have this bigger perspective. The more we know, the more we understand, the more we forgive. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, for me, it took me a lot to really get to this point where I could forgive. Because I didn't understand what the fuck was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I'm bad. I'm not doing good, or I'm like something is missing or something. The more I learned, the more I understood. I'm like, oh, wait a second. These are programs. These are beliefs. Let me change them. And the more I did that, the more I really understood of what is happening. And I could see the bigger picture of the perfect reality and the reality that was imposed on us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it's a process. Yes.
Can I give another case? So I have, for example, I'm procrastinating on something that's apparently, I cannot say it's important to me because I'm not doing it. Apparently important to me, and I'm really saying I'm angry at myself, and I'm kind of I want to do it, but I'm not doing it, and I'm each time I remember, oh, I should spend some time learning the stuff. I'm banging myself. Oh, you didn't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm just wondering, well, it's not like I can forgive myself, like, okay, I'm doing the best side, like, you know,
Mhm.
taking the best decisions I can for this, at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is like something more that I would need to kind of stop banging myself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So another interesting thing about procrastination, what procrastination actually is, it's a form of stress relief.
Mm.
So basically when you're procrastinating, you're releasing stress because you're overstressed. Okay, another interesting thing about this is that certain action, do you have a certain resistance to it?
Yeah, totally.
Yes. So this type of resistance is what is causing the procrastination, because what is happening, you have some beliefs that are like, oh, this is not good for me, or doesn't resonate with me somewhere there, and what is happening is these beliefs are acting like a brake, and when you want to do it, it's like what's the word for it? You're hitting the acceleration and the brake at the same time, and the motor goes like, and then you get super stressed. And then you need to procrastinate. Does it make sense?
That's me as well.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
exactly me.
Totally, yes.
So you
Because-
felt me,
No, but this is me as well.
but in some cases, I mean,
Yeah.
like that in the case of thesis, like for the
This
past 3 years.
procrastination thing, I don't get it at all, actually. I mean,
Mhm.
like, why people have this.
It's amazing, yes, I don't see it in it. No,
Yeah.
I don't see it. in it.
Yeah, it also depends on the level of stress a person can handle. Because if you can handle more stress innately, it's not innately because it's also this is programmed. Because the more trauma you have and the more trauma is passed on to you, the less stress you can handle. So this is also another thing. And all the other programs. So basically, the better you can handle stress, the less likely you will be to procrastinate. And also, it really depends on the beliefs. Because, for example, I had many issues when it came to money stuff, and I worked extensively on it to overcome it. And then when I finally released the programming and released the subconscious program, then suddenly I was just doing it and I didn't realize I was doing it. Because there was no breaks, you know, and then like just went away. When you have this type of like resistances and you're like, I need to push. Okay, I know you need to push, but you need to check what is holding you back. So you need to do the inner work, so then the outer work, it just like goes further on. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. So in a way, this is super important, because anytime, just like a little personal story, anytime I wanted something, firstly I was like, okay, I want this. Then I checked like how my body responds, and if my body is tensed in any way, I know that there is a resistance somewhere. I deal with the resistance, and I clear till there's nothing left. And then when I think about that or doing something that and no resistance appears and literally the road is clear, then what happens is I get that stuff and I'm like, I only realize after a while that, oh my god, I got it. Because it's basically like on the inside there is no more resistances and you're like, oh, I already have it. Does it make sense? So this is what you need to do. You need to check what is the resistance when it comes to that stuff. Because one thing is the resistance, and another thing could be, I'm not saying it's 100%, it's your higher guidance that is telling you like, you don't actually need this. It's like, because most of the things that we need are like, or we want to do is like programmed from other people, like, oh, you need to like read 1,000 books to be successful. Do you really need to? Maybe not, maybe yes, depends on the person. So it really depends from person to person. You know, no formula for success, quote unquote, is the same for everyone. Make sense?
Yeah, totally. So I guess this working with, not resentment, with resistance is another topic, right? So we just teach.
Yeah.
This is, it's another topic, that forgiveness, you think, resistance.
No, forgiveness, you can use it in many ways. Also, you can use forgiveness as energy clearing.
because kind of if you compare it to releasing these clogs, blood clogs, it's kind of a resistance. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use it. You can use it also like that. But what I'll suggest first is try to use it for other people. First, release it from other people, and then try to forgive certain aspects of yourself. And the more you play with it, the more then you can use it for other stuff. But first, you need to fully understand it and then fully feel it. So this is the most important, because mentally you understand it, right? It makes sense. But you need to understand it viscerally, on the body level. Because otherwise, like, everything I say is just like, oh, it's a cute story. But if you don't go deeper and experience it, then you don't know if it's true or not. So that's like, practice it on other people, forgive other people. What I'll suggest is to try to make a list of, 10 people that you want to forgive. And literally set the intention, okay, 10 people that I really need to forgive. And your conscious mind will be like, oh, this. And then do this exercise.
And what about, because you're saying it's easier to forgive if you think that those people were harmed, that they are maybe unconscious. But what about cases where you know somebody hurt you on purpose? They knew, and they wanted to stress you.
That still comes from an unconscious trauma.
Okay.
It's like, even if they're intentionally want to hurt you, that intention is caused by the trauma. Does it make sense?
Yeah, totally. Okay, easy.
Yeah, because we just need to see deeper. Even if somebody intentionally wants to hurt you, you need to understand that they still have something there that triggered this reaction. Even if it seems like they're aware of it, they're not aware. Another tool that you can use for forgiveness is called, let me hope I don't butcher this, Ho'oponoponopono. Yes.
So fast.
Yes.
That's good. Already this word is
But actually, I've heard about it.
Yes. Yeah. Joe Vitale, he uses this technique. It's actually a Hawaiian technique for forgiveness. Ho'oponopono.
Actually, this Pawlikowska, she has videos of that.
Yeah. And basically, this technique, in the book, he said that he healed a mental ward, like a mental hospital, full of mentally ill people with this technique, by forgiving them for their illnesses. And everybody recovered. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's in the book. And the technique, it's actually four words. It's, please forgive me. Wait, what was it? No, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And this is, you repeat over and over again. Please forgive me. No, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. If you listen to the energetic resonance of the words, just close your eyes for a moment and listen to the words and listen how, and just feel them. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Okay? Do you feel the difference between these four words? And how it almost has this rhythm in a melody.
It's like a step.
Exactly, like steps. So this is also a technique that you can use for forgiveness to help you even more by just repeating these four words. Okay? You can do this, for example, I don't know, your resistances or something. Just talk to your resistances. Please forgive me. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And try to do this to literally forgive your resistance. In a way to release the judgment from it and see what happens. We will see. Make sense?
Okay.
Yes. So these are the techniques that you can use. And again, the most important thing is practice. Make sense?
May I have my case also?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the it's like some stupid little mistakes that are taking my time. Then I blame myself that I wasn't focused enough in that moment. For example, stuff like losing the keys, or I don't know, like writing email with wrong date, I don't know, some stupid little things, but then I have to spend a lot of time to like fix it. You know? So then I'm so angry at myself when I did it again. For example, somebody writes me an email and I'm thinking about something else, and I'm replying with even like wrong name to this person.
That happens
Really?
as well.
If you have many emails, but I think it happens.
Yeah, for sure. You just know.
But I'm really getting angry at myself then. Like super angry.
Yes. No, it's
like dear madam. So it happens.
like one time, sorry, I'll come back to it, don't worry. Like I have it. One time I had an English exam and I needed to write something like an email. And I wrote like, I was a bit in a hurry, and I wrote dead customer, you know the dear customer. And luckily I saw it before I sent it, and I was like, oh God, thank God. I was like, it was an English exam, so it was like fine. Like. Okay, so for this case, it's you need to pay attention to your state, because trying to juggle too many things at the same time, you know, can really like affect your focus. And I see that this is a matter of like focus, right? So you need, again, these are mistakes done because probably you were just too tired. And you
but
had
also something like, I don't know, I'm like with my thoughts, I'm something
Somewhere
that's
else, yeah.
like in the future already planning something like forward. So I don't know, it's like, and then I do mistakes like in the present, let's say.
Yeah, like it's just like, okay, so you can forgive yourself because that is the best thing you know at the moment how to do, right?
Okay, this makes sense.
Yes, because if you for example say like one day that like, oh, I need to change this and I will start implementing a new routine or something to change in order for you to do the work also and also plan everything in advance. You know, in a way to strategize your focus and energy in such a way that you don't do these mistakes anymore. And once you have the new strategy, then you see like, oh, it works. So what happened when it didn't work? You didn't know then what you know now. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So in a way, it's that. And yes, being angry at yourself, it's normal because this is what we are programmed to do. So when we do mistakes, because we instead of going like, oh, I actually was like really tired and I did the mistake, and there's like I did it because I was tired. But what we tend to do is like the program is like, oh, you did a mistake, bad. This is what we have also in the school, right? So it's all these programs. So in a way, it's try to focus on improving the schedule, so physical, practical stuff. But at the same time, try to see the bigger picture that is like, okay, I was in a bad state when I was tired or when I did this. So I can release this anger. I can release these expectations that I have. Because they're basically expectations, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Does it help?
Yeah, it helps in a way that I don't see better strategy right now to organize the day. So only in this way it helps. So it will happen again.
Another way what you can do is ask yourself, what is a better way? And when you ask this open-ended question, then your mind and your universe start to like pop ideas. This is how like you basically like discover new stuff. What is the better way? And like it's an open-ended question, and try to ask this more and more. What I would suggest even better, to ask it right before going to sleep, because then you're like more, it will have a bigger contact with your subconscious mind. And then you'll get more answers, I don't know, the dream, in the next morning, so on and so forth. Make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So try it out and let's see what happens. Okay then. So everybody has a case. Paulina, do you have a case? Like
Yeah, I have a case, but I think I have a case similar to Sarah, kind of.
okay.
That I procrastinate if I. It's all the time the start of my thesis, all the time.
Yeah.
Well, this like never-ending story. Actually,
Mhm.
tomorrow I'm going to speak with a professor
Mhm.
and to go to the university and to face certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I really have no idea why it's all the time happening. Seriously.
Yeah.
And
Makes
now I
sense.
even tried, but it's kind of procrastination. I do other stuff, and I wouldn't say it's because I'm lazy, because I really try. And if
Mhm.
I really want to do something, I can stay overnight and do things.
Makes sense.
But with this shit, it just
Yeah.
it's especially to him, and I think
Yeah.
I never actually I blame him a lot, the guy,
Yeah. So what
the
I'll
professor.
suggest. Yeah.
I blame him a lot.
What I'll suggest is try this forgiveness exercise to him and see what happens.
Yes. It came to me immediately when you were saying like that he was the first person who came to me. And also forgive myself, because it's very much connected.
Yeah.
That in this area, I cannot forgive myself that it's still happening.
Yeah.
So that I
Mhm.
cannot overcome it, even though there's something bigger than me.
Yeah.
I think now it's I have enough power to face it, but before I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Makes sense.
And also it's connected kind of my childhood and stuff like that, the way I was trained. And when I'm facing this kind of personality, I just cannot overcome it.
Mhm.
Because it's very critical and it's very like...
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, we tend to attract what we need to resolve within ourselves. So
Yes, so this is, he shows me, myself.
yeah.
So that's why I cannot forgive myself, still that I have this, even though I'm saying it's him,
the,
it's like,
the
fine,
critical
it's
part.
him, I'm telling it's him, but I resonate with that, because otherwise I wouldn't have this antenna,
Yeah.
for this criticism and high ambitions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. Do you have any other questions? If not, we can just end it